The following program, offered by Fox 19, includes lawyers licensed in Kentucky. For those lawyers to maintain compliance with the Kentucky Bar Association requirements, the phrase, "This is an advertisement," must appear on the screen. Moore Law is underwritten in the public interest by the Moore Law Firm, a legal professional association. This is Moore Law on Fox 19.
Good morning and welcome to Moore Law. You know, American veterans put everything on the line to serve our country, so getting fair compensation from the government would seem automatic. But many vets find themselves fighting another big battle, this time with the Veterans Administration over things like pensions, disability, and injury lawsuits. So it's crucial to know how the claims process works, when you can appeal, and what rights widows and dependents of veterans have. If you are a military vet or a relative with questions about veterans' legal rights, give us a call at 513-421-4691. Don Moore, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Deb?
Very good, very good. How was your week? I haven't seen you in a week.
Well, you know, one of the things we got to do was we celebrated both Dan, who's also on the show, my son, and my wife's birthday, Pat. On Saturday, grandkids came over. We had a good time.
Sure was a nice day to have everybody over and be outside.
Yeah, and this it was a great weekend, and a lot of stuff on veterans and the sacrifice they make for our country. So we thought today would be a great day for a veteran show.
Perfect. And would you like to introduce our guest?
I would indeed. Mike Mooney. Welcome, Mike.
Hello.
Welcome back.
That's right. Welcome back.
You're our first repeat visitor.
He's a veteran. He's a veteran here. And Mike has been practicing for over 40 years in Cincinnati, and he is a member of the National Organization of Veteran Advocates, which is not very many people, that's kind of an exclusive thing. And he handles veterans' disability and medical claims, and so he's here to help us put on a really great show.
Great. And you know, Mike, you and I were talking briefly, and I was shocked by when you said how long it typically can take for veterans to get benefits.
I'm very honored to be here today on Veterans Day. And this is a day when our nation salutes the veterans instead of vice versa. And you'll hear lots of good things about veterans, and everybody honors them and respects them. The problem I have is a lot of times it's just all on the surface, because there is a system that's designed to serve them called the Veterans Administration, Department of Veterans Affairs, and it's a broken system. And kind of the dirty little secret is, after all the parades and everything today, the reality is every veteran who has a claim pending at the VA can probably expect it to take another 4 to say 20 years for that claim to be resolved. The VA is pretty good about denying claims quickly, especially in Ohio, which each state has its own VA office in Ohio, grants the smallest number of cases, grants it the lowest amount, and takes the longest amount of time. So if you're in Ohio, it's not a very vet-friendly place if you have a claim. But it can easily take 4 to 20 years for the case to be resolved. And that's tragic, because these are individuals. If they win, and at the end of that 20-year period, they may get a huge check, and that's a wonderful thing. But they would have liked to have had it while they were living their life, not while they were, you know.
Right. So Mike, why so long? What's the excuse?
It's a system that I genuinely believe was designed to be excruciatingly fair, and there are lots of rules that are veteran-friendly rules that make it easy, in theory, make it easy. But it's such a complicated system. I'm an attorney, and I barely understand it. I mean, it is constantly changing. I spend all my time studying the rules, and then you get staffing. You know, the staff in the VA system is relatively modest. It's a modestly staffed program, and so they don't have the resources, really, to do the number of claims that are pending, given the complexity of the claims. If the claim process was simpler, if the way you prove your case was simpler, if it didn't have so many rules, it might breeze through faster. But right now, they're just, given the way the program's structured, it takes forever.
Okay. Well, let's try to help some folks navigate the system a little better. First up, we have McKean in Covington. McKean, I understand you were in the Gulf War. Thank you for your service. And, okay, McKean, I don't think you're there anymore. I apologize. We have Isabella. Isabella, please go ahead with your question.
Please.
Isabella?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Yes. When my husband passed away, we had 6 children, school age, and we received a check every month. And as each one graduated, you know, the check, the amount went down. Mm-hmm. But after the last child was out of school, they just cut the check off. And I have a brother that was in the Air Force, and he keeps telling me I should be able to get a check from the veterans, but I really never knew how to go about it. I've been a widow since 1968. I never remarried anybody or anything, but I don't know how to go about it.
Okay.
That's a good question.
It's a complicated question because there are, like I was saying initially, the VA's, it has lots of rules, and it has a variety of rules for widows. There are 2 different widows programs, one for widows of husbands who died because of something related to service, and one for widows whose husband died for unrelated symptoms. Each program has its own set of unique rules. They're very complicated. I would have to know a lot more about your husband's service, whether he was service-connected, that type of thing, to be able to give you any kind of accurate answer. Certainly the way you want to approach it is, if you're trying to start your case, you can file it with the VA. They have an 800 number, which is 1-800-827-1000, or you can go to your local VA office. There was one in Cincinnati at 3067th Street. Ohio is the only state that I'm aware of that has a branch office. There's an office in Cleveland, and we have one down here. Most states it's just one. But you could file your claim there in person. You could go to the county veteran service office. Each county has a veteran service office. So.
Okay. All right, well, we hope that's helpful. We're going to take a break right now. We'll be coming back talking about veterans benefits. Give us a call, 513-421-4691.
Welcome back to More Law on Fox 19, your legal questions live, with local broadcaster and award-winning reporter Deb Haas and Cincinnati personal injury attorney Don Moore, recognized by Ohio super lawyers. More answers, more help, more law on Fox 19.
All right, we take you now to your More Law Connection, where Dan Moore is answering viewer emails. Good morning, Dan.
Hey, Deb, how you doing? We've got our first question about DUIs, and the question is, how do I get a DUI taken off my record? The answer in Kentucky and Ohio is different. In Ohio, you can't do it. There's a statute that says that if you have a DUI, you specifically cannot get that expunged. In Kentucky, however, you can under certain circumstances. In Kentucky, if you have only one DUI, and it's been 5 years since the ending of your conviction or your sentence, you can get it taken off. You should be aware, though, that when you expunge records, you're only expunging the records related to the clerk of court system or the public record that someone could walk into the courthouse and get. It doesn't seal the record that somebody has already gotten. A company, for example, a data mining company that perhaps obtained the record before the expungement took place. That's going to still be out there. But as far as in Kentucky, if you want to expunge that DUI, you can do that. Deb, back to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Dan. We are back talking about veterans benefits today with our guest, Mike Mooney. Thanks again for being here.
Sure. My pleasure, of course.
Well, thank you. And we had a caller earlier that we lost, and I think you wanted to address this question. I believe it was about that they just couldn't find his records.
The problem, it's an absolutely maddening problem. Veterans, while they are in service, obviously if they have medical problems, they go to the facility, they get medical care, and then when they get out and they want to apply for disability based on something that happened, either a physical injury or emotional trauma in service, the first step, of course, is to get those service medical records, because that will document that this event occurred. And 99% of the time, those service medical records are mysteriously missing. And it is true of every single era. It's true of Gulf War guys. It's true of Vietnam guys. It's true of Korean War. Those records just mysteriously disappear. And it makes it that much harder to prove their case. There's court law that says in that event they get some brownie points. It makes the burden of proof is a little easier. And there are ways around it. One of the things I did on a case was my client had emotional problems in service, and we found a sergeant, and of course the medical records were gone, but the sergeant signed an affidavit saying yes, he had emotional problems. I sent him to a psychiatrist.
So
And that was all we
there can be
needed.
ways to navigate
There
it.
can be ways, and based on that, we proved the guy had problems in service, and he got $350,000 in back benefits.
Okay.
Okay, very good.
All right. Let's go to our next caller. We have Tasha in Kentucky. Good morning, Tasha.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing good. I have a question. My mother was a veteran. She passed away in '93. Me and my brother was under the age of 18 when she passed. We did find out recently she had full benefit because the American flag 6-minute salute was done. I want to know legally what can I do about the home that they took back and sold before we was 18.
The answer is nothing. I mean, unfortunately, whatever happened back then, whatever your rights were back then, you had to deal with them. But mostly, children don't succeed to anything. When the parents are gone, there's nothing. The VA system doesn't really provide anything for adult children.
Okay. All right. We will head back now to Dan with another email question. Dan?
Okay, our second question is a personal injury question. It's from Nick, and he asks, I had a broken ankle at my home, but then I was in a car accident that made my ankle worse. I'm having a hard time with the bills now because the insurance company said my ankle wasn't hurt in the accident. What can I do? Well, the rule is, just like any injury case, is the insurance company is responsible for what the crash cost. The trick is figuring out, if you have an old injury, what was caused by the crash and what would have been caused without the crash you would have experienced just because you had an injury. Well, the way you do this is with a doctor. You go to your doctor and you can ask your doctor to write a report, or you can ask your doctor to come testify for you at trial. And what he does is he says in his report the treatment that's caused by the crash, the degree to which your old injury was exacerbated or made worse by the crash, what future care is going to be required as a direct result of the crash, and what you wouldn't have had to have if the crash didn't occur. So the doctor's the key in these personal injury cases. So you have to communicate with him. If you have a question, go to the Fox 19 website, go to the More Law tab and fill out the Send Us Your Questions form and click Submit. As always, we'll do our best to answer your question. Deb, that's all I've got for today. Back to you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dan. And we'll take a break right now. We'll be back with More Law talking about veterans benefits. 513-421-4691. Indiana Bar Associations require we give the addresses of the attorneys on the show. So for Mike Mooney today, you can find him on Main Street downtown or at mooneyparklaw.com. And Don Moore and Dan Moore at the Moore Law Firm on Nimitz View Drive, moorelaw.com. Or, of course, you can just click on to fox19.com and go to the More Law tab. Welcome back again. Today we are talking about veterans benefits, but you wanted to take just a moment, I think, and explain to the viewers some changes that have happened with laws regarding traumatic brain injury.
Yeah, really, it's a big deal, Deb. Just last August was signed into law the Traumatic Brain Injury Rehabilitation Act of 2011, and that makes it current events. The numbers are really something. We have a little list here. Traumatic brain injury by the numbers, an estimated 1.5 million head injuries in emergency rooms specifically, not related to veterans necessarily, but with respect to veterans, up to 300,000 Iraqi veterans have some level of TBI, and 30% of all the soldiers admitted to Walter Reed Army Hospital have TBI, TBI being the initials for traumatic brain injury. And in personal injury cases, we see this all the time. You can get it from a car wreck, you can get it from a construction accident, from a fall. And I've had cases where people, in fact, I'm thinking of one specifically right now, this man had a broken neck, a crushed shoulder, a crushed hip, and a traumatic brain injury. Guess which one was the most profound? The traumatic brain injury. You can't see it, but what it did was it changed his personality. His wife later said that she was not married to the same person, and she really bought the idea of for better or for worse, and so she hung with him. And he was blessed in that respect.
Right.
But my goodness, it completely can change your personality, ruin your life.
And change everyone's lives around you. Right. Okay, let us go back to the phones now. We have Maurice in Covington. Maurice, I understand you served for 19 years, and you have a question following that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I served 19 years, about 19 and 8 months in the military in Iraq. I was injured in the line of duty, and I was sent back home for surgery, 5 surgeries total, and I was discharged from my unit, and I received a general discharge instead of a medical. Can I fight that?
Well, you can always fight the nature of your discharge, and there is a process for doing that. As with all things, the operative word is it's complicated. I mean, that's the reality. But so you can certainly get your discharge rating evaluation upgraded, but a general discharge doesn't bar you from getting benefits. And so if you have an interest in getting service-connected benefits for any of the physical injuries or potential emotional injuries you have, you can file for that, regardless of what you may have been told by the military, because they often provide misleading information when veterans are discharged.
So how does Maurice instigate a claim?
He has to contact the VA. He can do that at the, he can call the 800 number that I mentioned earlier, 1-800-827-1000. You can go to his local office. There's a county veteran service office in every single county in every single state in the United States.
But you have you have to do it in writing,
right? You have to do it in writing. Making a phone call doesn't count. Even if they record the phone call, it doesn't count. You've got to go. You got to hand them a piece of paper that says, "I want benefits."
And is that a paper you generate, or is that a form?
It can be a letter. It can be a call to your if you call your congressman, the congressman sends a letter on your behalf that says, I have a constituent who thinks he's disabled. That's an application, an informal application.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let's get to another call. We have Sam in Hebron. Sam, you were a Gulf War vet and you had post-traumatic stress disorder, but you're saying that your benefits were denied.
That's right. I was in the first Gulf War. And then they told me, I was seeing a psychiatrist, psychologist, and all that, and then they said that when I put in for the VA loan, they said that they denied me. What do I do about that?
How long ago did they deny you?
This was in 98, 99.
You have a year after you're denied to file an appeal. Obviously, that year has expired. You've got to start over and certainly file, as we've talked about, how to do that. You contact the VA and you file your claim. The key to winning a VA case is real simple. Never give up. Never give up. Don't be discouraged by the turndowns, because it happens. And the only thing I can tell you is good things happen to those who wait. And eventually, typically 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, as long we have cases that are 20 years, as I've mentioned earlier, you win and you get a ton of money. But if you're easily discouraged, it's not worth pursuing. And you cannot live your life for the case. In other words, you can't be running to the mailbox every day saying it's today my lucky day, because I tell people the only unit of time, the smallest unit of time the VA understands is 1 year. Nothing happens less than that.
So when does someone like Maurice need to go see a lawyer?
Well, it certainly makes sense to apply. If he gets turned down, then an attorney can charge. If he hasn't been turned down yet, attorneys can't charge, and they're less interested. But I would be delighted to talk to Maurice, and I'm sure the other local attorneys who do this would be delighted to talk to Maurice, even if he hasn't been turned down yet, and give him some advice on how to proceed, and maybe even work with him, knowing pretty well, even though he hasn't been turned down, we know the VA is going to turn him down. Yeah. So that's almost a given. And so
at least you know what you're dealing with when you make that call.
That is a sad commentary.
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right, let's try to get another call now. We have Felicia in Covedale. We just have a minute or two, Felicia, but we'd love to hear your question.
Hi, I'm a military vet, and while I was in boot camp, I had a traumatic, basically what happened to me is I was exercised so bad that I wound up throwing up in my mouth and being dehydrated so bad that I had a tremor disorder. And to this day, I still have tremors, and this has been over 19 years. Like, my head shakes, my arms, my hands, especially when I'm, like, I have a nerve issue, like I'm nervous or I overdo too much.
And so you're
something that I can do.
Sure, you have anybody who has an incident in service can file a claim for it. And it doesn't even have to be in service. If you're home on leave and you're in a car accident, you can be service connected for that car accident. It only has to have happened while you were serving. But in your instance, it actually occurred in service. The tricky part about your case, once you file it, will be proving the event occurred, because typically the kind of thing you might have had a little bit of medical attention, as we talked about earlier. Those medical records are always missing, and so how do you prove it? And how do you prove the other part is, if you can prove it occurred and you have problems today, the tricky part is proving a connection. You had a cold in service and you have a cold today. Does that service connect it? No. I mean, people get colds. So you need to have a medical doctor link those two things. That proving it occurred in service and then having a medical doctor's link is essential, but you have a claim.
Okay.
So Mike, if a person gets a lawyer to represent them on a VA claim,
right.
How much does the lawyer get paid, and are they always paid by the hour? How's that work?
It's typically 20% of back benefits. It's a contingency case, contingency arrangement, just like with personal injury. So if they don't win, the attorney doesn't get paid. There's no obligation.
Okay. Thanks so much for joining us, Mike Mooney. Coming up next week, we'll be talking about divorce and child custody, then slip and fall, and then on December 3rd, what to do when you can't afford a lawyer. That's it for us here on More Law Today. Again, get out there and thank a veteran today, okay? We'll see you next Monday.